Metals and non-metals. In your previous class, you have studied about various elements. You have learned that elements can be classified as metals or non-metals according to their properties. Think of some uses of metals and non-metals in our day-to-day life. What properties did you think about during the classification of elements as metals or non-metals? How are these properties correlated with the uses of these elements? Let us study about some of these properties in detail. Physical properties: metals grouping substances by comparing their physical properties in the easiest way. Let us learn about these by the following activities. For performing activities 1 to 6, collect the samples of following metals: iron, aluminum, copper, magnesium, lead, sodium, zinc, and any other metal that is available easily. Activity 1. Collect samples of iron, aluminum, copper, and magnesium ribbon. Record the appearance of each sample. By rubbing with sandpaper, clean the surface of each sample and record again their appearance. Metals have a shining surface in their pure state. This property of metals is known as metallic luster. Activity 2. Collect small pieces of iron, aluminum, copper, and magnesium. Try to cut these metals with a sharp knife and record your observations. Hold a sodium metal piece with a pair of tongs. Caution: always handle sodium metal carefully by pressing it between the folds of a filter paper. Make it dry. Keep it on a watch glass and try to cut it with a sharp knife. What do you observe? You will observe that metals are generally hard. The hardness changes from metal to metal. Activity 3. Collect some pieces of iron, zinc, copper, and lead. Put any one of these metals on a block of iron and strike it with a hammer. For or 5 times. What do you observe? What do you observe? Do the same activity again with the other metals. Note the change in the shape of these metals. You will notice that some metals have the property to be beaten into thin sheets, which is called malleability. Did you know that silver and gold are the most malleable among all metals? Activity 4. List the metals whose virus you have seen in daily life. The property of metals to be drawn into thin virus. It's called ductility. Gold is the highest ductile metal. You will be measured to study that a wire of a length about 2 km can be drawn from 1 gram gold. It is because of ductility and malleability that metals can be given various shapes according to our needs. Can you tell some metals which are used for making cooking vessels? Do you know why these metals are used for making vessels? Let us perform the activity given below to find out the answers. Activity 5. Take a copper or aluminum wire, clamp this wire on a stand as shown in figure. By using wax, fix a pin to the free end of the wire. Hit the wire with a candle, a spirit lamp, or place a burner near where it is clamped. What do you notice? After some time? Record your observations. Does the melting of the metal wire take place? The activity 5 gives that metals having high melting points are good conductors of heating. Silver and copper are the best conductors of heat. Lead and mercury are poor conductors of heat as compared to them. Our metals are also good conductors of electricity. Let us try to find out. Activity 6. Set up an electric circuit in the same way as shown in figure. Put the metal to be examined in the circuit between terminals A and B as so. Does the bulb glow? What does this show? You must have noticed that the wires that carry current in your homes have a covering or a polyvinyl chloride PVC or a rubber like material. Why are electric wires covered with such substances? What will take place when metals strike a hard surface? Do they generate a sound. The metals that produce a sound after sticking it on a hard surface are called sounders. Now, can you say why school bells are made up of metals? Now, non-metals in 9th class, you have studied that there are very few non-metals in comparison to metals. Some of the examples of non-metals are carbon, oxygen, iodine, sulfur, hydrogen, etc. Except bromine, except bromine, all the non-metals are either sodium, either solids or gases. Do non-metals also have a properties similar to that of metals? Let us try to find out. Activity 7 takes samples of carbon, coal or graphite, iodine and sulfur. Perform the following activities from 1 to 4 and 6 with these non-metals and note your observations. Record your observations regarding metals and non-metals in table 1. According to the observations recorded in table. Talk about the general properties of metals and non-metals in the classroom. In your classroom, you must have seen that we cannot classify the elements on the basis of their physical properties alone, because there are many exceptions. For example, all metals exist as solids at room temperature except mercury. In the above activity 5, you have seen that metals have high melting points, but cesium and gallium have very low melting points. If you keep them on your palm, both these metals will melt. Iodine is a non-metal, but it is luscious and have a shiny surface. A non-metal carbon can exist in various forms. Each form is called an allotrope. Diamond is an allotrope of carbon, which is the hardest natural substance known and has a very high boiling and melting point. Graphite is another example of allotrope of carbon, which is a moderate conductor of electricity. Alkali metals, lithium, potassium, sodium are very soft that they can be cut with a sharp knife. They have low melting points or low density. On the basis of chemical properties, elements can be more clearly classified as metals and non-metals. Activity 8 takes some sulfur powder and magnesium ribbon. Burn the magnesium ribbon, collect the ashes produced and mix it in water. Examine the resultant solution with both blue and red litmus paper. Is the product liberated on burning magnesium ribbon acidic or basic? Now burn sulfur powder to collect the foams produced. Place a test tube over the burning sulfur. Mix some water to the above test tube and shake it well. Check the solution with red and blue litmus paper. Is the product liberated or burning sulfur basic or acidic? Can you write the equations for the reactions? Most non-metals from oxides which produce acids after dissolving in water. On the other hand, most metals produce basic oxides. In the next section, you will study more about these metals oxides. Chemical properties of metals. We will study about the chemical properties of metals in following sections 3.2.1 to 3.2.4. For this, collect the samples of following metals: copper, aluminum, magnesium, iron, lead, sodium and zinc. What happens when metals are burnt in air? You have studied in activity 8 that magnesium burns with a dazzling white flame in air. Do all metals react in the same way? Let us check by performing the activity given below. Activity 9. Caution: a teacher's assistance is necessary for the following activity. If it would be better to wear eye protection for students, hold any of the samples taken above with a pair of tongs and try to burn over a flame. Repeat the same with the other samples of metals. Collect the product if formed. Let cool down the products and the metal surface which metals easily burn. Do you notice the color of a flame when the metal burns? How does the metal surface seem after burning? Arrange the metals in the order of their decreasing decreasing activity towards oxygen are the products dissolved in water. Almost all metals react with oxygen to produce metal oxides. For example, when copper is heated in the presence of air, it reacts with oxygen to form copper second oxide, black oxide. Similarly, aluminum produces aluminum oxide. Recall from chapter 2 how copper oxide combines with hydrochloric acid. We have studied that metal oxides have a basic nature, but some metal oxides such as zinc oxide, aluminum oxide, so both basic as well as acidic behavior. Such metal oxides which react with with both bases as well as acids to form salts and water are called as amphoteric oxides. Aluminum oxide reacts with acids and bases in the following manner. Most of the metal oxides are not soluble in water, but some of the metal oxides are soluble in water to produce alkalis. Sodium oxide and potassium oxide dissolve in water to form alkyls as follows. We have noticed in activity 9 that all metals do not combine with the oxygen at the same rate. Different metals show different reactivity with the oxygen. Metals like potassium and sodium react vigorously so that they catch fire if kept in the open. Hence, to prevent incidental fires and to protect them, they are kept dipped in kerosene oil at ordinary temperature. The surface of metals like magnesium, lead, aluminum, zinc, etc. is coated with a thin layer of oxide with the protective oxide layer protects the metal from further oxidation. Iron does not burn on heating, but iron fillings burn vigorously when sprinkled in the flame of the burner. Copper does not burn, but the hot metal is covered with a layer of black substance, which is copper. Second oxides, silver and gold do not combine with oxygen even at high temperature. Do you know anodizing is a process of producing a thick oxide layer of aluminum. Aluminum produces a thin oxide layer when exposed to air. This aluminum oxide cover makes it resistant to corrosion. The resistance can be improved further by forming the oxide layer thicker. During anodizing, a clean aluminum article is taken as the anode and is electrolyzed with dilute sulfuric acid. The oxygen gas is produced at the anode reacts with the aluminum to form a thicker protective oxide layer. This oxide layer can be easily dyed to give an attractive finish to aluminum particles. After doing activity 9, you must have seen that sodium is highly reactive. Of the samples of metals taken here, the reaction of magnesium is less vigorously, showing that it is not as reactive as sodium. Thus, burning in oxygen does not help us to decide about the reactivity of zinc, iron, lead, or copper. Let us take some more reactions to reach at a conclusion. To reach at a conclusion about the order of reactivity of these metals. What happens when metals react with water? Activity 10 question teaches resistance is necessary for this activity. Take the samples of the same metals as in activity 9. Put small pieces of the samples in beakers half filled with cold water separately. Which metals reacted with cold water? Arrange them in the order of their increasing reactivity with cold water. Did any metal form fire on water? Did any metal start floating after the passage of some time? Keep the metals which did not react with cold water in a beaker half filled with hot water. For the metals that did not react with hot water, set the aptitudes as shown in figure and see their reaction with steam. Which metals did not react even with steam? Arrange the metals in the order of their decreasing reactivity with water. Metals combine with water to produce a metal oxide and hydrogen gas. Metal oxides that are soluble in water further form metal hydroxide after dissolving in it. But all metals do not react with water. Metals like sodium and potassium react violently with cold water. In case of sodium and potassium, the reaction is so violent and exothermic that the generated hydrogen gas catches fire immediately. The reaction of calcium with water is less violent. The evaluated heat is not sufficient for the hydrogen gas to catch fire. Calcium starts floating floating because the produced bubbles of hydrogen gas stick to the metal surface. Magnesium does not react with the cold water; it reacts with hot water to produce hydrogen and magnesium hydroxide. It also starts floating because the sticking of the bubbles of hydrogen gas to its surface. Metals like aluminum, zinc, and iron do not react either with hot or cold water, but they react with steam to produce hydrogen and metal oxide. Metal oxide metals like copper, lead, silver, and gold do not react with water at all. What happens when metals react with acids? You have already studied that metals react with acids to produce a salt and hydrogen gas. But do all metal reacts in the same way? Let us try to find out. Activity 11. Take all the metal samples except potassium and sodium again. If the samples are transcended, then clean them by rubbing with sandpaper. Caution: do not take potassium and sodium as they react vigorously even with cold water. Keep the samples. Keep the samples separately in test tubes having dilute hydrochloric acid. Suspend thermometers in the test tubes in such a way that their bulbs are immersed in the acid. Carefully observe the rate of formation of bubbles. Which elements reacted with dilute hydrochloric acid vigorously? With which metal did you notice the highest temperature? Arrange the metals in the order of their decreasing reactivity with dilute acids. Write the equations for the reactions of zinc, magnesium, aluminum, and iron with dilute hydrochloric acid solution. Hydrogen gas is not produced when a metal reacts with nitric acid. It takes place because HNO3 is a strong oxidizing agent. It oxides the H2 evolved to water and gets reduced itself to any of the nitrogen oxides. N2O, NO2. But manganese and magnesium react with very dilute HNO3 to produce H2 gas. You must have noticed in activity 11 that the rate of formation of bubbles was the fastest in the case of magnesium. The reaction was also highly exothermic in its case. The reactivity decreases in the order. In the case of copper, no bubbles were observed and the temperature also did not change. This indicates that copper does not react with dilute HCl. Do you know aqua regia? It's a freshly obtained mixture of concentrated hydrochloric acid solution and concentrated nitric acid solution in the ratio 3:1. This mixture can dissolve gold even through neither of these acids can do so alone. Aqua is the Latin for royal water. Is a highly corrosive forming liquid. It is one of the few reagents that can dissolve platinum and gold. How do metals react with the solution of other metal salts? Activity 12. Take a clean copper wire and an iron nail. Keep the copper wire in a solution of iron sulfate and put the iron nail in the solution of copper sulfate taken in test tubes. Note your observations after a few minutes. In which test tube did you find that a reaction has happened? On what basis can you say that a reaction has actually occurred? Can you relate your observations for the above activities 9, 10, and 11? Write a balanced chemical equation for the reaction that has occurred. Also tell the type of reaction. Reactive metals can replace less reactive metals from their compounds in molten form or solution. We have studied in the above sections that all metals metals do not have equal reactivity. We have checked the reactivity of different metals with oxygen, acids, and waters, but all metals do not show reactivity with these reagents. So we could not put all the metal samples collected in decreasing order of their reactivity. Displacement reactions studied by us in chapter 1 give better evidence of reactivity of metals. If each is easy and simple, if a metal A displaces metal B from its solution, it will show high reactivity than B. Which metal, iron or copper, is showing more reactivity according to your observations in activity 12? Their activity series is a list of metals grouped on the basis of their decreasing activities. After performing displacement experiments, the series given below in table 2, called as the activity or reactivity series, has been developed. Series has been developed. How do metals and non-metals react? In the above activities, you have studied about the reactions of metals with a number of reagents. Why do metals react in this manner? Let us recall what we studied about the electronic configuration of elements in our previous class. We studied that the noble gases which have a completely filled valence shell, so low chemically reactively. Hence, we explain the reactivity of elements as a capacity to attain a completely filled valence shell. Let us see the electronic configuration of some metals and non-metals and noble gases. We can note down from table 3 that a sodium atom contains one electron in its outermost shell. If it loses the electron from its outermost M shell, then its L shell becomes the outermost shell. Now that contains a stable octet. The nucleus of this atom still has 11 protons, but the number of electrons has become 10. So there is a net positive charge. So charge on sodium atom giving as the sodium cation Na plus. Chlorine, on the other hand, contains 7 electrons in its outermost shell and it requires one more electron to fulfill its octet. If chlorine and sodium were to react, the electron lost by sodium could be gained up by chlorine. After taking an electron, the chlorine atom gets a unit negative charge because its nucleus contains 17 protons and there are 18 electrons present in its KLM cells. This produces a chlorine anion. So both these elements can have a give and take relationship between them as given below. Chloride and sodium ions are oppositely charged, attract each other and are joined by strong electrostatic forces of attraction to stay as sodium chloride. In HCl, it should be noticed that sodium chloride does not exist as molecules but can combine with oppositely charged ions. Let us look at the formation of magnesium chloride, one more ionic compound. The compounds produced in this way by the transfer of electron from a metal to a non-metal are called as ionic compounds, or electrovalent compounds. Can you name the anion and cation forming MgCl2? Properties of ionic compounds. To study the properties of ionic compounds, let us do the following activity. Activity 13: collect samples of potassium iodide, sodium chloride, premium chloride, or any other salt from the laboratory of science. What is the physical state? In which these salts exist? Put a small amount of a sample on a metal spatula and heat it directly on the flame. Repeat the same process with the other samples. What did you notice? Did the samples give any color to the flame? Do the compounds melt? Try to mix the samples in water. Kerosene and petrol, are they soluble in them? Set a circuit as shown in figure and put the electrodes into an aqueous solution of the salt. What did you notice? What is your calculation about the nature of these compounds? You may have noticed that the following common properties for ionic compounds. Physical nature: ionic compounds are solids and somewhat hard due to the strong force of attraction between the negative and positive ions. These compounds are normally brittle and break into pieces when they are pressed. Boiling and melting points. Ionic compounds have high boiling and melting points. This is because of a considerable energy which is required to break the strong ionic forces of attraction. Solubility Electrovalent compounds are normally soluble in water and not dissolved in solvents like kerosene, petrol, etc. Conduction of electricity. The conduction of electricity through a solution includes the movement of charged particles. A solution of an ionic compound in water has ions, which move to the opposite electrodes when electricity is passed through it. Ionic compounds do not conduct electricity in the solid state because movement of ions in the solid is not possible because of its rigid structure. But ionic compounds conduct electricity only in the molten state, which takes place only because in the molten state the electrostatic forces of attraction between the two oppositely charged ions are overcome by the heat. Thus, the ions can move freely and conduct electricity in themselves. Occurrence of metals. The Earth's crust is the main source of metals. See, water also has some salts dissolved in it, like magnesium chloride, sodium chloride, etc. The compounds or elements which exist naturally in the Earth's crust. In the Earth's crust are called as minerals at some places. The minerals have a very high percentage of a particular metal, and the metal can be extracted profitably from it. These minerals are known as ores. Extraction of metals. Extraction of metals. You have studied about the reactivity series of metals. You can easily understand by having this knowledge how a metal is extracted from its ore. Some certain metals are found in the Earth's crust in the free state, while others are found in the form of their compounds. The metals present at the bottom of the activity series have the least reactivity. They are often found in a free state. For instance, gold, silver, copper, or platinum are found in the free state. Silver and copper are also found in the combined state as their oxide or sulfide ores. The metals like K, Na, Ca, Mg, and Al have so high reactivity that they are never occurred in nature as in free state. The metals in the middle of the activity series, Zn, Fe, Pb, etc. So moderate reactivity, they are occurred in the Earth's crust mainly as sulfides, oxides, or carbonates. You will see that the ores of many metals are oxides. This is because of the high reactivity and abundance of oxygen in nature. Hence, on the basis of reactivity, we can classify the metals into the following three categories: 1. Metals having low reactivity; 2. Metals having medium reactivity; 3. Metals having high reactivity. Various techniques are to be used for obtaining the metals present in each category. Many steps are included in the extraction of pure metals from ores. A summary of these steps is given in figure. The detail of each step is explained in this arrow diagram. In enrichment of ores. Ores mined from the earth are normally contaminated with large amounts of impurities such as soil, sand, etc. called gangue. Prior to the extraction of the metal, the impurities must be removed from the ore. The process used for the removal of gangue from the ore are based on the differences between the chemical or physical properties of the ore and the gangue. Various separation techniques are employed accordingly. Extracting metals low in the activity series. Metals that are present at the bottom in the activity series are very and reactive. The oxides of these metals can be reduced to metals only by heating. For instance, silver HGS in an ore of mercury. When it is heated in the presence of air, it is first converted into mercury oxide H2O, HgO. On further heating, mercury oxide is then reduced to mercury. Similarly, copper, which occurs as Cu2s in nature, can be obtained from its ore just by heating in air alone. Extracting metals in the middle of the activity series. The metals that lie in the middle of the activity series like iron, lead, zinc, copper are moderately reactive. These are generally occurred as sulfides or carbonates in nature. Metal is easily obtained from its oxide. as compared to its carbonates and sulfides. Therefore, the metal sulfides and carbonates must be converted into metal oxides before reduction. Before reduction, the sulfide ores are changed into oxides by heating strongly in presence of air. The process is called as roasting. The carbonate ores are converted into oxides by strongly heating this in absence of excess air. This process is called as calcination, the chemical reaction that occurs during roasting, and calcination of zinc ores can be represented as follows. Roasting. The metal oxides are then reduced to the corresponding metals by using suitable reducing agents such as carbon. For instance, when zinc oxide is heated with carbon, it gets reduced and gives rise to the metallic zinc. You have already studied about the process of oxidation and reduction from first chapter. Getting metals from their compounds is also a reduction process. Besides using carbon coke, sometimes displacement reactions can also be used to reduce metal oxides to metals. The highly reactive metals such as sodium, aluminum, calcium, etc. are used as reducing agents because they can replace metals having lower reactivity from their compounds. For example, when manganese dioxide is heated with aluminum powder, the flowing reaction occurs. Can you find out the substances that are getting oxidized and reduced? These displacement reactions are highly exothermic. The amount of heat produced is so large that the metals are liberated in the molten state. In fact, the reaction of iron oxide Fe2O3 with aluminum is used to join cracked machine parts or railway tracks. This reaction is called as Thermite reaction. Extracting metals towards the top of the activity series. The metal present at the top in the reactivity series are highly reactive. They cannot be obtained from their compounds only by heating them with carbon. For instance, carbon cannot reduce the oxides of sodium, calcium, magnesium, aluminum, etc. to their respective metals. This is because of the more affinity of metals for oxygen than carbon. These metals can be obtained by electrolytic reduction. For instance, sodium, calcium, and magnesium are obtained by the electrolytic reduction of their molten chlorides. The metals are deposited at the negatively charged electrode, the cathode, whereas chlorine is produced at the positively charged electrode, the anode. The reactions are as follows. In the same way, aluminum is obtained by the electrolytic reduction of aluminum oxide. Refining of metals. The metals obtained by various reduction process explained above are not very pure. They have impurities which must be removed to get pure metals. Electrolytic refining is the most widely used method for refining impure metals. Electrolytic refining. Many metals like copper, zinc, nickel, tin, silver, gold, etc. are refined electrolytically. In this process, the impure metal is taken as the anode and a thin strip of pure metal is taken as the cathode. A solution of the metal salt is taken as an electrolyte. Set up the apparatus as shown in figure. After the passage of the current through the electrolyte, the pure metal from the anode dissolves into the electrolyte. An equivalent amount of pure metal from the electrolyte is obtained on the cathode. The soluble impurities come into the solution, while the insoluble impurities settle down at the bottom of the anode and are called as anode mud. Corrosion. You have studied about corrosion in chapter 1, that when silver particles are exposed to air, they become black after some time. This is because of the reaction of a silver with sulfur in the air to form a coating of a silver sulfide. Copper reacts with most carbon dioxide in the presence of air and slowly loses its shiny brown surface and produces a green coat. This green substance is basic copper carbonate. When iron is exposed to most air for a long time, Then it gets a coating of a brown flaky substance called rust. Let us study about the conditions. Let us study about the conditions under which iron rust. Activity 14. Take three test tubes and put clean iron nails in each of them. Name these test tubes A, B, and C. Put some water in test tube A and cork it. Put boiled distilled water in test tube B. Add about 1 milliliter of oil and cork it. The oil will float on water and prevent the entry of air. Pour some anhydrous calcium chloride in test tube C and cork it. Anhydrous calcium chloride will absorb the moisture if any from the air. Leave these test tubes undistributed for a few days and then see. You will notice that iron nails get rusted in a test tube A, but they do not get rusted in test tubes B, S, C. In the test tube A, the nails are exposed to both water and air. In the test tube B, the nails are exposed to only water, and in test tube C, the nails are exposed only to dry air. What does this tell you about the conditions under which rusting of iron articles takes place? Prevention of corrosion. The rusting of iron can be prevented by oiling, painting, chrome, plating, greasing, glazing, by coating iron objects with zinc, anodizing, or forming alloys. Glavination is a method of protecting iron steel from rusting by covering them with a thin layer of zinc. The glavinated article is protected against rusting even if the zinc coating is broken. Can you tell about the reason of these? The best method of improving the properties of a metal is alloying. We can obtain the desired properties by this method. For instance, iron is a most widely used metal, but it is never used in its pure state. This is because pure iron is very soft and gets easily stretched when hot. If it is mixed with a small amount, about 0.05% of carbon, it becomes strong and hard. When iron is mixed with chromium and nickel, then stainless steel is obtained, which is hard and does not rust. Thus, when iron reacts with some other substances, its properties change. In fact, the properties of any metal can be changed if it reacts with some other substances. The substance mixed may be a metal or a non-metal. An alloy is a homogeneous mixture of two or more metals, or a non-metal and a metal. It is obtained by melting first the main metal and then dissolving the other elements in definite proportions in it. It is then cooled to room temperature. Do you know 24 karat gold, known as pure gold, is very soft. Hence, it is not suitable for making jewelry. It is alloyed with neither copper or silver to make it hard. Usually in India, 22 carats gold is used for making jewelry. It means that 22 parts of pure gold is mixed with two parts of either copper or silver to form an alloy. If mercury is one of the metals, then the alloy is called as an amalgam. The melting point and electrical conductivity of an alloy is less than that of pure metals. For instance, bronze and alloy of copper and tin, Cu and Sn, and brass and alloy of copper and zinc, Cu and Zn, are not good conductors, whereas copper is helpful in making electrical circuits. Solder an alloy of tin and lead as low melting point and is used for welding electrical wires together. More to know, the wonder of ancient Indian metallurgy. In Delhi, the iron pillar near Qutub Minar was made about 1600 years ago by the iron workers of India. They had developed a process which prevented the rusting of rough iron. This is due to formation of a thin film of magnetic oxide Fe3O4 on its surface because of a finishing treatment given to pillar by painting it with a mixture of different salts, then heating and quenching. The iron pillar is 8 meter high and having 6 tons 6,000 kilogram weight.